Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Man Voices and Stories, episode 5, with special guest, my good friend Dominick. And today we're going to talk about what it takes to be not just a publisher, a writer, a father, a leader, a motivational speaker. So stay tuned here as we get started on Man Voices and Stories. All right. Good morning, Dom. How you doing this morning? Good to see you.
How you doing, brother? Thank you for having me on here. I am honored.
I'm great, and you're my second guest on Man Voices and Stories. And when I designed this show and the concept, I wanted to pick men, average, everyday guys who do regular, extraordinary things. And I think you're one of those guys. Dominick is a father. He's a host of a great show called Man to Man, or no, not Man to Man, not the smartest guys, with Tom over on Clubhouse and YouTube. So if you want to check him out, you'll be able to look him up, and I'll put them in the description of the show. He's also a writer of two books, believe, or one book?
True, man. Probably like 8. But
Oh, eight.
I retired from I retired for the most part from writing and try to help other people. But yeah, I think I'm up there.
Right. And just to get right into it, what got you into writing out of curiosity?
Well, you will appreciate this. A lot of failure. I got knocked out a lot of times. My dad gave me an Augmentino book when I was about 13 years old. I got cut from the basketball team, and he gave me and my sister Augmentino book at the time, and encourage. He gave us $100 to read the book, and you had to answer like 10 questions from it. And I think at that point, I breezed through the book and didn't really understand it, but it was something that I kept with me for years and years. And as I started, life hits us all, and as I started to have some obstacles and setbacks, I read the Augmentino again, understood it. I read Joel Osteen, Dale Carnegie, Norman Vincent Peale, started to read everybody I could find. And that's then years later, I had some more things going on in my life, and I started thinking,
It wouldn't
maybe I got
happen to
something.
be this book, would it?
Yeah, that's my favorite. Here we go. We're kindred spirits. So
All right. Augmentino is the greatest salesman in the world. Mine is tattered. It is old. It is highlighted, written into. This is an amazing book. And I think that if you haven't checked it out, it's a really short, actually, it's 2 parts. There's part 1 and part
mhm.
2. And I got more out of part 1 than I did part 2. But you know who turned it on to me was Matthew McConaughey in an
Oh,
interview.
okay.
And that was like 20 years ago, 23 years ago that I got it. So yeah, it's on my desk. I was like, oh, coincidence. Oh, I
I
have it
can
right
count
here.
two. I'm looking for another one. I have of the same one I have sitting around here too. It's got some dates on it. But yeah, all of a sudden I just started thinking I had something to say. It wasn't like those guys. It was about going broke, getting beat up, being a dad. And I thought, maybe I'll try this. And that's where I started a long time ago.
And not to talk too much about the book, but would you say it kind of gives a little bit of a framework of being I mean, it really can apply to men or women, but would you think it's a good framework to kind of like, if you were to tell young guys like, hey, you're going to get ready to leave school, you're going to be on, this kind of gives you in a story some framework about what it's going to be like to be a man, you know, like
100%. And yeah. I think there's the scrolls in there where I will take action. I will greet each day with love in the heart. I will persist until I succeed. These basic scrolls, if you had those, which you also gave me, that led me to The Alchemist. And I want to give Jason credit for that. Alchemist, great. Probably the 20 years in between from Augmentino, The Alchemist for me was probably one of the hardest hitting after Augmentino.
and I'm glad you mentioned The Alchemist because I've read it 36 times. 36 times. I don't know anyone, I don't know many people, but I've met a few, and I looked in the community of of the writer Pablo Coelho, and people have read it 40 times and keep reading it. And
Yeah.
same with The Greatest Salesman in the World. There's many books that are certain just iconic, but in the framework of being, not just a man, but being a leader and having integrity, having, you're going to face hard times. It's going to seem like sometimes you're all alone. And especially you're married, right? You have a wonderful wife,
Yeah.
right?
I'm
And,
going on let's do this. Let's do the math here. So
uh-oh.
2001, I got married. It's 2023. So that's 22 years, right? 22
Mhm.
already. And we're going away this weekend. So we're still hanging in there and still trying to do it better. It's not an easy route. I mean, as right into this on man to man here, being a dad isn't easy. Being a husband's not always easy. And although you love your spouse so much, there's fights, there's setbacks, there's growth, and it takes work. All of it takes work, man.
Yeah, it does. I definitely agree. And when we look at, you know, when I created this series, I didn't want like, hey, just to be bold if you feel weak or if you're not the kind of guy that measures up to the outside world or to be brawny or a super warrior. I wanted a place where men of all positions can come and just really start learning from each other. And it doesn't come from the biggest motivational speaker out there. And then there are those, and that might work for some, but I'm here to really explore the story. And, if you could care to share what was one of the biggest struggles, entering into marriage that you didn't think of when you proposed, but you encountered it when add some time into a marriage. What's the biggest struggle and accomplishment, if you don't mind care to share? I know I'm
I
putting you on the
think, yeah,
spot.
no, I appreciate that, and I think for what you have to realize, and what we it's a growth. Both people are growing. We were kids. I mean, I went to the senior prom with my wife, and
Oh,
then
wow.
yeah, and then you go to college. I've been in business where I've been bankrupt. I've we've had sick children. My son's an insulin diabetic where he needed 10 shots a day as a little kid. Like, and there's so many opportunities to grow apart. Businesses, careers, children, discipline, and you have to work to not grow apart. And it's so like there's two different paths that everybody's on, but to make sure to work to stay on the path. And I'm not saying I'm doing it perfect, and but there is a I try to make that effort to grow together.
Right. It's very it's an intriguing, intricate thing, and you're not gonna have all the answers right off the get-go. Because once you are under the umbrella of marriage, it may seem like to a lot of guys, wow, this is a lot to manage, and I have another person to be responsible for. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
when you add kids into the factor, then it is the real, I call it the twist and the stretch of the rope, the bond of marriage. I've never been married. I've been in a relationship for 9 years, and me and my significant other are entering into marriage. And this is after, it's like living, like being married. And one of the things is once you're under that umbrella, it there's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's a lot of things that are going to go right. And then a lot of things that you're going to go both learn. And I think that's very important. How many kids do you got, by the way?
I have two. I have a. I'm in the thick of it. My daughter's about to turn 15, and my son's about to turn 18. So, on the other hand, maybe I'm almost through it. Yeah, yeah, I know it. Fatherhood never ends because
Never
I
does.
still talk to my dad and all the time and ask him for tips and things like that. But uh, yeah, it wasn't always easy. There's something as you talk about there that really, like we're talking fatherhood and we're just dishing man to man here. So I see so many relationships that don't work. And one of the things that I see in common in these relationships is when you talk about family, you talk about children. Dad has to put his ego aside. Dad is not first anymore. Like dad let's say dad wants a new Glock. Dad wants a new bicycle. Dad wants to go here. And this is my belief. When you're in a family, it's family first, you know, spouse, you. And now you can't just let all your needs be pushed aside and things like that, but you have to think it's family first. It's finances, family finances first, not just you. And that's where I think there's a lot of people out there that just don't. You entered into this. What do you call it? What is a nuclear bond? I hear this term nuclear. What's that mean? You probably know.
I don't know, but what I do know is once I became see when me and my girlfriend we were in relationships and in other relationships she was previously married, and one of the things that I think that you have to set out is like what's the game plan, what is a goal in it, and if couples don't have like a plan of overall not it's not a solid plan, but it's an overall picture of like, hey, it's not just me earning the money and bringing the paycheck, but it's really having the where can we have conversations to check in?
Yeah,
Where are clear definitions, not hints? Because I think that's one thing that goes wrong in marriages is that they hint a lot and not say exactly because one's afraid they're going to offend the other or they're overwhelming, and I do not like the accolades of chain and ball because that's not what it is, because I look at my partner, soon to be wife, I look at her as she is my greatest asset. She is the one that's going to give me counsel when I'm not making sense because, sometimes as a guy, we're just like, look, action, then reflection,
yeah, yeah,
and then strategy, like, oh, I should have done that this way.
yeah,
But I mean, that's something that goes into in part shaping a young man. I mean, me imagine being 18 and your now wife is pregnant, or you both don't have your careers. You still got to go through college or you got to go through university. And this is what a lot of people are debating. Should I even get into a marriage? And I'm here to say that, you know, if you're not ready to play house or be in a marriage, don't play house. Go learn about yourself first.
yeah, yeah, right.
And don't think about what people are going to take away from you, but think about like, hey, find mentors, find older couples, men that you really admire that are my mentors, some of them have been married 40 years,
Yeah,
30 years, you know, 20 years, and they're still learning,
yeah,
after
man.
their kids are out of their house. So getting into the professional side, you know, because of a result of marriage, did it make you concentrate more like when you did your education? Like, I don't know if you got a college degree. These are things I've never, or you went to university, or if you didn't. I'm assuming you did, but
Yeah, I went to Pitt. I'm a Bachelor of Science,
really,
business management. So it all. I think one there was a way, like as you talk about being together, there was a path, a plan. Well, house, bigger house, family, being able to provide for family. Okay, and then in the terms of like the alchemist, like chasing those pyramids and things like that, I would say don't, like you mentioned that term, and you didn't say that, you didn't use it in your terms like ball and chain. It's not that. You're you're a girl. You always say you're girl. Yeah, you're my. I think my wife, like same as you, makes me better because I would probably be doing some crazy stuff. I'm always right on the threshold anyway, and she pulls me back at time from making probably catastrophic decisions where sometimes I'm so inclined to, like you said, take action and figure it all out later. That's probably to be the best me is a balance I need. A lot of people don't think about. So I don't think it's a team, and I don't think about it as a ball and chain. It's a team that probably to get where we all want to be and accomplish those goals. I probably need strong people around me. I think we all do, right?
we do, and it's not just because of one person, and it's gonna seem like you're running by yourself. Like, can I really share this with my partner, in the most stressful moments? And they think the same thing. And what I can tell you is more than likely, you both are going to feel like that. But how you discern, how you decide what's going to take place, what, let me balance this out. And one of the things I'll tell people is, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
It may hurt to hear the answer, which
Mhm.
that is the truth, and it's valid, but we have to think about, as we're going forward, one thing that my lady, my partner does is emphasize, like, make sure that you lead by your vision. Don't lead by mine.
Yeah.
Mine will add in, but she's like, but we integrate and we marry the thoughts, and she can be her own person. There's times you need to be your own person,
Yeah.
have your own space. And it's hard when you have kids, because it's like they don't want to feel like they do it all. But you got, and I give so much credit because I work sometimes 10, 12 hours a day, and that's no joke, and it's a big responsibility. But really having that vision for yourself, and this is one of the reasons why I love listening to you, not the smartest guys on Wednesday mornings, is that you motivate and you integrate with people of all walks of life.
Mm.
And being a publisher, um, that's really intriguing because we were just talking the other day about the different people who want to write books versus the people who can write books. And is that book going to sell? And I love your YouTube channel with you and your friend, and you guys do bike rides and you go on adventures. And I was just watching the link yesterday. I only got to watch it for 2 minutes. And I love the one episode that I really liked watching was where you guys were going to this historical society, and I think it was like 1 or 2 episodes ago, and you guys were just, like, going through neighborhoods on the East, and in Pennsylvania, and to me, that says a lot because it's like, as I'm building my family and building the things, it's like these people built homes to house families, and, that's it's amazing. So, you know what is the one thing that keeps your marriage growing right now out of curiosity?
Open dialogue, growing together. The more open that we are, the better things are. The more closed that we are, the more stress, because we're all facing, everybody's facing stress. I could dig in on what Jason's going through right now, or what I'm going through, in anybody, or what somebody listens. And we need to be like, holy shit, that woman, that guy, they're going through a lot. And if we keep that all bottled up and don't talk about it, I mean, it's gonna come
You know
out.
what that reminds me of? Shaking up an old soda bottle. Just shake it up, and it just takes the lightest thing to tip it off, and it just
All
goes
right.
all over. So
I'm
I
thinking about that mood slime in Ghostbusters that just
yeah.
keeps festering and festering until it comes up and takes over the city.
You know what? That's a great example, I like that. The other one I think of is The Goonies, and I think of Data, you know?
What,
There's
who's Data? Go on.
the Asian kid, and, you know, like, he comes swinging across his zip line into his best friend's, uh, uh, his house, remember? And then he's got all these gadgets coming out, like, hey, he's got a punching, mechanism, like, with a like, when someone's getting close, he's got boom, it pops out, or he's got lights to light up the tunnel in Goonies, so I like that one. That makes me think of that, and that's kinda like a guy, we gotta be ingenious, you gotta be able to learn how to work
Yeah,
on stuff. You gotta be able to, like, take it when it's like, "Man, I really don't wanna deal with this right now, I just wanna walk away."
yeah. There is no walking away.
Yeah, but that's life, and it doesn't matter whether you're married or in a or or single, So, and that brings up a question, and one of the questions I asked you, okay, and this makes people think about their mindset of really what's added to their life. What purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life
Ever, or is
ever?
it
It could be in the last
ever?
6 months. It could be best $100 you've ever spent that you got a value on.
So I was thinking, I was I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna go straight for, since we mentioned it already. I'm gonna go Alchemist. And
You spend $100 on the book
you
or
said
less.
less
Yeah.
than, you said less than $100.
Okay, or less. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah, there we go. $100 or less, because there, and so I'm thinking in the last year, there is the concept in this book, the personal legend, that we all
Mhm.
have this personal legend to chase, and we're going to keep chasing it no matter what. Like, if somebody here wants to be a professional fisherman, or they want to start a business, or they want to marry whoever, they're going to chase that goal, and you are going to keep chasing that goal. And this is what the alchemist taught me. So at I'm 45, about to be 46, I'm going to keep chasing the things that I have set, like my personal legend. To In the alchemist, it's pyramids, right? The guy wants to see them, and he finally finds the woman that encourages him to find the pyramids.
And it wasn't
He,
the one he started out with. Wasn't that interesting? The one he
mhm.
remember in the beginning, he was gonna shave the sheep in front of the baker's dog or the wool guy, like, "Oh, she's gonna get so amazed. I'm gonna run through this thing and and she's gonna be so amazed." But then he had that thought, "Well, why would a woman wanna marry a sheep herder who wanders?"
Yeah,
And that's the thing that a guy's fate is we anticipate and we assume, and sometimes that sabotages our own journey, but
yeah, yeah. Or
but
you settle, so you you get so focused on one thing that
yeah.
you're not seeing the rest of the world. You're not in the present. You're not in the moment. So the reason I go to that is just a reminder in my mid 40s to not give up on that personal legend, whatever it is. So if it took $12 to remind me to chase my dreams, and that if they're that important to me, then family and everybody else will agree and be there to support me. And I think that's why I go with that's the
Would
best money I spent.
would you say that, remember in the story, and I don't like to talk too much about books because I really well, this is really about you. Um, the story where the guy goes and meets the crystal salesman,
Hmm.
and then he gets so good at selling tea out of his crystal, and he's like, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore."
Yeah.
And the crystal salesman, and this is I think this is a good thing for all guys to kinda, like, think about. He goes and tells him, it's like, "Look, I can't keep you're doing great. You were horrible before, but we took something, it's become super successful, but I need to grow. I need to go see my
Yeah.
treasure underneath the pyramids,
Yeah.
my own personal legend."
Hmm.
And do you feel like that's where men can get hung up on, is stagnate and not get past, say, like, a certain position, never upgrade, never further their mind because they're used to a one particular spot.
Yeah, it's almost comfort, the golden handcuffs, whatever. There's a million ways to put it. And but one thing that I try to get across, like, from a motivational standpoint, is that whatever makes you happy, if it is, if it's working your job so you can get off at 4 o'clock and go coach baseball, more power to you. If it's working your job so you can get off and buy, I got a buddy that loved the now they're the Cleveland Guardians, I think. He loved the Guardians, so he had a good job so he could buy season tickets and get to every baseball game. So to live the life that made him happy, which was watching the Guardians 80 times a year, he had to have a certain job. If it's but if I think, if, like, let's say I used to be in pharmaceuticals, hated pharmaceuticals, right? It was a means to an end
You
for
mean
me.
you're a drug dealer?
The best, yeah. It was a means to an end, and it wasn't, even though I made good money, it wasn't for me. So like, you got to figure out what makes you happy. It wasn't even at some number, it wasn't fulfilling to me. So I always knew that I was coming into the publishing world and the storytelling world. But I think we get so stuck in that, one, trying to please everybody else, trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to overextending, all those things that can lead you to that stagnant, what's the word?
Stagnation.
Stagnation. I was going to say
Yeah.
stagnation. Okay, got it. Yeah, that's what I think.
And your buddy Tom, he just wrote a book called Legendary, right?
Legendeering, yeah, it's coming out.
Legendeering,
Yeah,
and that is on my list to buy. And that's an amazing thing, but there's something I wanna kinda and I'm prompting this question. I'm always amazed in your background, and I see a picture of Muhammad Ali standing over I believe it's Sonny Liston,
yeah, the Phantom Punch. Go on.
and what I mean, it's always intriguing when I go into people's homes and I see and I sometimes my buddies have their man cave or their garage or
Yeah.
their office, their space, but could you tell us, like, a little bit about what made you put up that particular picture? Was it something you like, or is it something that represents you, out of curiosity?
multiple reasons, but I grew up in my house growing up. My dad had uh, 9 brothers and sisters. I think he had 12 that at the beginning that a few died early in childhood, but he had 9 brothers and sisters, super poor. They like he would sit down to dinner after the other after other brother and sisters had eaten. So at my house growing up, like today, my kids play sports and did all that stuff and lacrosse and things. And I played basketball, I played baseball, but my family was into boxing because his family was into boxing. That's what they knew, and they watched. My dad, later on, went to the Spinks Tysons. He went to the fights in Vegas, and he um, got me into boxing at a young age. So here's when I was young, and I'm in school. Whether I made the high school team, made the junior high team, whether I played football, I sometimes got more pats on the back and I don't, and this is not to be disparaging. I got more pats on the back when I got in a fight at the mall. I got
Mm.
more pats in the back when I fought somebody at baseball. Or it was just, it was because and it wasn't a bad thing. It was competitive, and it was you stood up for yourself, and you sometimes you had to use your hands, right? That was you, and then we. I was taught that you you like you turn the other cheek, you warn them, and then you fight like hell. And that was how I grew up. And maybe even sometimes today it's still too in my mind. But uh, so Muhammad Ali and there's more boxing stuff around me as a representation of not only my love for the sport, but also
Well,
um,
I think that says a lot about you, especially being in motivation champs and now on your YouTube and your social medias. I mean, people feel like they're constantly training or in a bout,
yeah.
and you're sticking and moving. You're learning how to jab. You're learning sometimes to pivot. There's a lot of things you got to duck, but you got to keep punching.
Never quit. Never get. You'll
Y-
get knocked
Yeah,
down. You'll get knocked
you
down.
never do.
And
And
a guy like Muhammad Ali is was the greatest. And like from a motivational point, he
mhm.
like. Do you ever hear the quote where he said, I believed I was the greatest before I ever was. And so there's so much motivation. Like let's say you as a host and a podcaster, or me and publishing and book. Well, if you have this belief that we're going to go to the top no matter what, and that's what he. I don't. I believe in manifesting when you put the work behind it, not when you just say, "Hey, I'm going to do something." But when you're committed, I'm going to get up like Jason's up early, hosting podcasts. He's working on his voice all week long. Me, I'm hustling. Hey, maybe if we keep putting in this work, we'll get to where we want to go. So I
Right,
do
there's a
agree.
level, and I think for a lot of guys, there's a lot of level of showmanship, in your everyday walk, but then there's a point where you gotta go quiet, and you just gotta do work, and you gotta
Mhm.
grind it out, and through that grind and that experience, you don't have to be you don't have to be the biggest badass. It's just straight up, you don't, because as you get older, you figure out, like, I don't really need to address everybody's problems. I don't need to address there are things that get me steaming,
Yeah,
get me excited. And I know sometimes when we come into not the smartest guys, and I'm bringing the heat, and I don't do it to hurt anybody. I'm bringing the heat, like, to drive the thought of,
yeah.
look, I don't want you just to stay in your own box, but look
Mhm.
and see what others have. Look, learn what you can learn from other people. And I think that's something that I take away from you. Every time I engage, there's a perspective of what do people also have to offer to show you, teach you, or share with you.
Yeah.
And having that table is a big deal.
I,
So,
I just want to give you a compliment. I was even talking to my wife before I came on the podcast today. Jason's one of the most direct people I know. Jason, that does not scare me. You being direct, anybody being direct with you shouldn't scare you. And Jason's direct, and he shares his side of whatever the issue is. Fair. I know. I always know where you stand. I am not afraid of hearing where you stand. I appreciate it. You're not wishy washy. You're not telling me that I'm here, and you're great. You're just telling me where you stand. There's nothing wrong with that, and I can say, yeah, good point, but I disagree for whatever reason, or I agree, thanks, and we move on. But to not be direct, I mean, just spit it out, even in the family, in life, whatever. So many people avoid confrontation and tough subjects, and then that mood slime, or the mood slime starts coming up
I
again.
got slimed.
Yeah. What was the other term we used before the mood slime? What was it?
Um, well, I mean, I got slimed. I got, I'm drawing a blank right
Yeah,
now.
all right, forget it. Somebody that's watching, remind
Yeah.
us.
But, and then that's the thing is like, you're not always gonna have it figured out. You're gonna have to like, man, sometimes I just got a mess all over me.
Yeah.
I'm Bill Murray. I'm laying in the hallway, and then Egon's telling him, "Hey, can you get a sample for me?" And you're and you're like, "Well, wait a minute, what? You're telling me I just got creamed by whatever I don't know, and you're asking me for this." And that's kind of like life. People, your kids, your wife will ask you for something. You're just like, I just went through a conversation I cannot get out of at the moment, like, or the field, but okay, let me redirect and let me readapt and adjust.
Mhm.
That's the thing is like we know um it's inconvenient, like even changing, there's a lot of things you can learn about being a father to being a man. Like I can tell you how many times my kids have peed on me. We're out in a bathroom, lifted my kids up. We're on a nice outing going to the beach, and I have a nice shirt on and everything. And you're like, all right, God, I got this. Don't
Yeah.
worry. I
Mhm.
got this. I'm not
Mhm.
going to lose my cool.
Yeah.
And it's not until when they have a blowout, then you're like, this is really tasting my testing my
Yeah. Yeah.
patience right now, because I've had that like, okay, changing out, and then just you're like,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Just when you
know,
want it least, it's
yeah.
coming. Yeah.
And that's why I tell every guy, hey, no matter what, always have a change bag, no whether you're single or not, always have a change bag in your trunk of your car, because that extra shirt can make a difference, or a pair of shorts. It just can. So, but that's something important. Okay, so here's one to kind of switching gears. Who's the funniest person in your family? Is it you, your kids, your wife, your dad? Um, who would
Uh,
be the funniest person?
I take pride in humor, but I'm going to give my son credit on here. I think my son works material. I think he very direct, like you, very direct, and his truth is his truth. Yeah, so it is, not always what you want to hear. It can be uh too much a lot of mornings or a lot of nights. I'm like, I don't want to have this debate, but he studies, he reads, he and educates himself. So I think it prepares him to have well-rounded thoughts, and he can come up with some pretty funny stuff.
And I think that's very important in especially being men, is being able to laugh about the situation. Because your kids sometimes they have no filters
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and you're just like, this is not the time, but this is pretty damn funny.
Especially when they're young, there is no filter. They just don't know. And as a dad, if you see something up ahead that isn't uh, typical or standard, your young ones are going to notice it. And I mean, I remember when they were little, I'm already pulling on their arms and grabbing their hands tighter if something up ahead might, if somebody things that they haven't experienced yet, they are going to be in awe of when they see for the first time. And so you're seeing these things up ahead and thinking, I need to squeeze this hand and or distract them or make sure that nothing comes out of their mouth that should have come out of their mouth.
I think that's a very important thing that you just said, because when you look at it, when they fall, right? For example, when your kids fall, it teaches something about you when you fall. Like you giving your kid, like, hey, I just fell off my bike and skinned my knee. Yeah, there's a plenty of skin the knee moments where it stings. It sucks to
Yeah,
get up, but then there's time where you do need to ask for help. You do need to talk to people. You need to relate to a tribe of your own mentors.
yeah, hmm
And I think that when you do that, you give yourself some grace. Like I have plenty of guys who just talk a bunch of smack. And then I have a group of guys that just like they don't talk a whole lot, but when they do, it's like, hey man,
Yeah.
we're gonna go work on um say like me and my buddy, my next door neighbor, he's in basic training, but he literally we would work on cars together. He's got a nice Mustang. He's got, we'd be changing brakes, working out, moving transmission fluid, doing the flush, all that stuff, breeding, just doing all kinds of things, but doing guy stuff. And it's like, man, sometimes you just learn from just working with another guy doing projects. And you do bike rides. I mean, are you mechanical at all? Do you fix things around the house yourself? Or I don't know if you
I
do, but
try, Jason. We got to be honest here. I
hey, none
try,
of us are
I
perfect at it,
try,
but
and then I feel like, now, grant I grew up in the landscape business, so I think my hedges are perfect, and my edge on my lawn is perfect, and I plant all the trees. But you get me inside, and I try to paint. I paint this wall, and it ends up there. I fix this pipe, and it ends up leaking down there. So I try, but it doesn't always go good.
I think that for all men out there, young and old, learn to be handy and don't be afraid to screw up unless it's a water heater or your electrical, then you need to hire somebody else.
I've been zapped a few times. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I keep trying, and I'm learning more. Now I'm up to lights. I can change lights, not bulbs, the actual fixtures. I'm changing fixtures now, but I still get shocked once in a while.
yeah, and that's the other thing is like learn to have fun with things. Now I know you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan,
Come
right?
on, yeah.
And are you also a Pirates fan? I'm just curious.
Now let me tell you how much of a fan I am. Now, so this
Uh-oh.
I'm pulling my credit card. See, number one, right there was I got terrible towels behind me at all times. I I'm a season ticket holder for the Steelers. I waited 20 years. I was on the list 20 years. So
Wow.
sometimes you gotta wait. I thought, hey, someday by the time they call my name on this list, I might have money to pay for it. And I I don't think I had the money, but by the time when they did call my name, I said, I'm not missing the opportunity. So I'm always there tailgating and having fun. And then, yeah, of course I'm a Pirate fan, but we just only win every 50 years, so I have not seen many wins in my
Well,
life.
I'm a San Francisco Giants fan. I'm a New York Giants fan. I'm a Giants and Giants, but there's years you lose, and that's life. There's years you win, and
Hmm.
when you're on that winning streak, you're like, yeah, like when the Giants, they were winning World Series, and from 2010
Yeah.
to I think it was like 2016, 2014.
Against us one year in the playoffs. Yeah, okay. You had to bring out the pain here. Go on.
Hey, I don't mind pouring the salt on the lemon. Don't worry about that because it will come,
Yeah.
But when it's heels, and you might be a little salty, but it is what it is. But it's like, hey, you got to take defeats, and that's another thing. A lot of guys bond over sporting events,
Yeah.
and do that. So if I get out to baseball season, out to Pennsylvania, I definitely hit you. Well, I actually have a lot of family in Pennsylvania.
You
That's
gotta
where my
come out.
mom's
We need you.
that's where my mom's family, they're in the Appalachian Hills. They come from coal mining folk. I mean, so but they've always told me, and my grandmother, God rest her soul, was a big Steelers fan and big Pirates. And she'd come out here, visit my mom. And then we took her to a game, a San Francisco Giants game, and she's like, it's not my Pirates.
Yeah.
It's just not my Pirates. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, grandma, don't worry. It's a beautiful sight to be in San Francisco. And she's just like, yeah, but Pittsburgh's a little better. And I'm like, okay, no problem, whatever. But I think that's it. That's something amazing is that, how guys bond, whether working on something, going to a sporting event, um, learning our integrity, with each other, how we speak to each other. Like I have friends who I can, like you said, I'm very honest. The way that I'm direct way I speak, but I'm encouraging with my directness.
Mhm.
I don't want to be the flexor. And that's one thing I like holding company with you is that you're very funny and direct. You have a sly way of sneaking things in there, but I like that conversation is always encouraging. What got you into being into the label and the brand of motivational champs?
Well, we started talking about the reading of the books. So here I am, I'm studying Augmendina, Norman Vincent Peale, John C. Maxwell, Jeffrey Gitomer, reading those books more and more and more. And then I start thinking, like, at the same time, I went bankrupt in business. I was a restaurateur, lost $500,000. And I'm reading these books just to get through the day and to wake up out of bed, because you get up some days and I owed 50 grand or half a million. So I needed these. At one point, I remember like, uh, I'm refinancing cars, I'm refinancing houses, I'm riding my bike to work because some days I don't even have enough to fill up a gas tank, just complete, just I'm going down a world of hurt here. And as my restaurant closed and I keep studying, I start thinking as time goes by, I start thinking I have something to say that it's a little different. It's about going broke in business. It's about picking yourself back up, getting cut from the team, whatever. And I started selling yellow page ads. This is my first job post,
Whoa.
yeah,
What is
post.
that to the young people?
Oh yeah,
Yellow
right.
pages? Do you mean a phone book, the thing that's like this, like a something like
Yeah, yeah,
this thicker,
yes, yeah,
or it
yeah, yeah,
comes in 3 volumes because 'cause you're such in a big city?
yes. So here I am, first job out of the restaurant business, uh, and I had a degree, and so I got hired in the sales, and they were big on writing your goals down. And so, write your goals, right? And I had strong management teams and things like that. But when they told you to write, so here I am starting to think I have something to say. They're teaching me how to write. So first, I remember I have a book somewhere. It says first book. So before that, I was writing pay Malaberti Produce $5,000, pay Saloni Bread Company $8,000. And so I'm thinking, this is what, goals I'm writing. Although I'm supposed to be writing like get 2 sales a week, I'm also writing pay off these debts, because I'd have to pay them as well. So then all of a sudden on this same green notebook, I wrote on the front of it, first book. And I started writing more. The sentences became chapters. That was the art of I started to build my first book. And it took years and years and years because I had no idea what I was doing. And then I started thinking, I'm going to publish this book. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I published a book. I have no idea what I'm doing. I go out and start speaking about it and finding new places to speak. No idea what I'm doing. And but you're learning, crafting, getting better. And then as I would be speaking, people would say, how did you do it? Or they would tell me a story. And I started to realize, wait a minute, these people have stories that could inspire somebody. And it became a lot less about me and a whole lot more about everybody else. And I just kept learning, and that's how the roots of the publishing uh, came about.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned something about speaking because you've got an event with our dear friend Julie Loken
Yeah,
coming up, and I do want to give you guys a shout out for that. So I'm going to put the link in the chat and see if we can add it here. And let's see if we can show this thing real quick. Here we go. Um, if you go to that link, CreativeCon/experts, that you're going to see on that page, you're going to see all the speakers, and guess who's there? And I'm going to share my screen with everybody so you can see. You've got an amazing group of speakers. So let me get this, and I'm going to share the screen real quick. Here we go. And guess who's right there? Dominick Damasky and Julie Locum, Tom from Not the Smartest Guys. So definitely an opportunity for, and I will put this in the notes of the show, for I will be there. I'm buying my tickets, and that's
sweet.
something that's going to be there. Oh, wait, a matter of fact, we have a guest in Clubhouse, John J. Wiley, who's also going to be at Creative Con. John, how are you doing this morning?
Well, just doing some work here. Good to be here with you.
All right, all
Wow.
right.
Wow, this is cool. So you got John Jay's going to be there. We're going to have panels. We're going to have expert speakers. We're going to have networking all over the place. So you're going to get to actually meet people like John Jay, meet people like Jason, meet Julie, and talk to them. And then there's going to be workshops. There's going to be practical application. I'm a big believer. So like we talk about like all those like I talk about all the crap that I didn't know along the way.
Yeah,
I
it's an amazing opportunity to be a part of. So
yeah.
go check the link out. Go to it's www.cre number 8 TIVECON.com, and you can buy your tickets. Get them
Yeah.
now while you can, because and then also when the event takes place, it's in February after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting something to be a part of Speakers Elevate Your Podcasting or your YouTube game or storyteller, meet people, authors, writers, publishers,
Mhm.
admirals, TV personalities. It's an amazing opportunity to be a part of. So I definitely want to give you guys a shout out for a Creative Con, and
Thank you, brother.
hopefully
Yeah.
maybe on the second one I'll be a speaker there as myself. But hey, we'll work on that later in the future. But you know, that's the other thing is like being a speaker in front of people. Is it a huge responsibility? Yes, I believe so. Is it an amazing feeling to be a part of? What do you think? Speaking in front of other people, how do you feel?
Well, one thing I want to like share about Creative Con and like it takes practice. And so one of the things like there you're going to get some practical application. So you might be able to get in a workshop where you stand in front of a room. You might be able to hear from a John Jay how he did it the first time. So and you're going to get to build community as well. So when you talk about me, I like to say I've done at this point I won't say 1,000, but hundreds, or maybe once you talk about like when you talk social audio too, maybe it has been thousands. I've struck out. I've my internet's collapsed. I've been on a stage and realized
I've
that
seen that one happen. I've seen where Tom couldn't come through. His video and his audio was just horrible. And it was just like, and he's like, "What's going on?" And I could tell him like, "Hey, here's what's going on. Your gain is not there. You can't hear you, or your camera is just glitched." So
yeah, and
you can
all those
move on and
things.
adapt and go on.
And you're gonna get on someday where let's say I don't like to talk about politics and somebody's gonna ask me about politics. And I might say, well, at the end of the day, well, I really don't know about that, but what I can tell you about is this. It takes practice. It takes getting out there. It takes I told a story one time at I was speaking and I told a story about anything being possible and I used Oscar Pistorius. He was
Ooh,
the Blade Runner, and I wasn't doing my research, and I didn't know that he was going through all those things with his wife or girlfriend at the time. And I'm giving a speech, and all of a sudden, people start yelling and almost fighting in the room. It or there's times where I didn't know my audience and I used examples I shouldn't have. It takes practice. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to get on Clubhouse. Don't be afraid to jump in Jason's room. Don't be afraid to be a guest. Practice, practice, practice. If you believe in your message, you have to get out there and practice. You have to share it to the world. You have to stand on a stump and yell it to the world. And so, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're putting yourself out there. Your friends are going to ask you why you said this or that. Well, you need to you work on it so when your friends do ask you that question, you're comfortable with it. It just takes get out there as many ways as you can and just scream it from the rooftops. That's
I
what.
think that's amazing that you bring that up, because the practice and the failure go hand in hand. And for a lot of men out there, young guys trying to become men, failure is just going to be a part of your fabric of who you are. And because once you screw up enough times doing the same thing, you're not easy. I'm not easily phased when I make certain mistakes. Like,
Yeah,
you know, um,
and like this term failure, like we use it so like that it's final and fatal. Somewhere I have a Winston Churchill quote. I can't read it. That failure is not fatal. Whatever. Like it's just part of the process. It's not. I just like now, like like let's say I feel like I'm uh, a athlete in the ninth inning or in the fourth quarter when shit's going all around you. Once you've been through so many failures, I think I have more clarity than I ever had. That I'm okay. Yeah, I can be
when
honed
when
in
you
and
failed, when you let's bring up the example of like when you failed at restaurateuring,
yeah,
which I was a waiter for about 15, 16 years.
yeah,
And I'm the employee, but I've also seen what management goes through. And when you're going through those financial failures,
Yeah.
one thing that, and I've learned through my own financial failures, is don't panic, because
Yeah.
once you start panicking, the
Mhm.
escalation of the problems get worse. But when you're going through that heat in your head, if you can't solve your problem today, you can't solve it tomorrow. It needs to be like, look, what can I do in the moment for here? That's it. And that's all I think about. I don't think about like, I usually go on long walks, and you do bike rides. And like I said, and especially when it's
Mhm.
nice weather. I mean, I don't know if it's snowing out in Pennsylvania yet, but um, do you like to walk to figure your problems out or
Yeah,
ride?
yeah, I no doubt that I am when I'm riding, when I'm running, when I'm out and about, that a lot of that time is spent thinking about those type of things. Sometimes I'll tell you a real good ride, and this is something I think about often. Sometimes I'm out there pushing as hard as, let's say I might go 30 miles someday or 20 miles and all over the city, or that's riding. But I think if I'm running fast enough or riding hard enough, there's a moment, and this is the moment that I cherish. There's a moment that I'm no longer thinking about all the stuff going on in my life. And now I understand to be present and stuff, but yes, I'm saying I'm out on that ride and I have to get up that hill. And the hill sucks. It's big, it's strong, it's against me. And all I am thinking about in that moment is getting up that hill. And that is the purest time. And where and I'll tell you, like my mom had Alzheimer's for a decade and passed away in the past couple months. And or when things are going on in the family or like relationship, whatever, we all have. Sometimes it takes the hill isn't big enough. That even on that biggest hill that day, I'm still riding up it where usually I'm like, Dom, work harder, push harder. This day, I'm still thinking about those other things going on, but I strive to find that hill. And on some days, I find it where I'm pushing, or the problems on that day aren't is that at that moment, the purity of that moment when I'm no longer thinking about all the other things going on in life, and I'm thinking about that hill. That's peace.
I
So
think that that brings up that quote, this too shall pass, no
yeah,
matter what. And much respect and love for you, as you've gone through, with the passing of your mom. And I want to give her absolute her accolades. And she has made an amazing man. I really appreciate who you are. And the thing is like their legacy is the one that you live out every day.
yeah,
And
yeah,
your
yeah.
mom and dad are I think are whether you've had good parents or bad parents or not, your parents are the people that gave you sometimes the pavers, and sometimes they gave you the dirt to clean up and rake and make the path.
Yeah.
It's not like a golden step. So, you know, there's a lot to say that I really admire about you, you know, and I learn, and that's what we can do for as men. We can learn from each other. We can learn from our parents, even if they weren't in our lives
Mhm.
in certain parts. Maybe the dads were out there working a lot of hours, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and I think about that for my own kids. And there's times I couldn't be with them, but when I'm there, I'm like I remember, moments my daughter Bella, who is an amazing young lady, 16, and I can remember going to swim meets. And even though sometimes she'd be finishing last, and I'm all, don't pay attention where you finish right now. Form,
So
then speed, then performance. And if you worry about that, and it's kind of like the practice that you're talking about, um, you know, towards the end of her swim career, I watch a little girl, shortest one, not the biggest. And she's swimming against girls that are kind of like German and Norwegian. They're just tall and they're big. And I just watched her steadily along, pass them up. And I said, see, and when you get your wins, that's something you did, you worked through. And I think that's all speaking a lot for a lot of us guys. Um, in Dom, I've definitely seen you in interviews, or I've seen you in talks with people where it's like, I just got to swim through this. I just got to get through these people. And it's gotten heated at times in Not the Smartest Guys. I'm not gonna lie about that. It's definitely got, whoa, okay, let me take a step
Yeah.
back, and I'm gonna say I'm a little bit of a coward sometimes. I'm like, I gotta dip out of this one. I don't want to be in this
Yeah, you
one,
know
man.
you're about to. I see you flash on, flash off. I know. Okay,
I'm like,
Jason's getting worked up.
I think that's a big thing, is noticing when to, like, what is my obstacle and problem versus it's somebody else's. And
Yeah,
I think you're good at navigating conversations about, when something's getting too heat. Like, I've seen you also say, hey, if you can't behave yourself, maybe this is not the greatest place for you.
yeah,
Where I'm
yeah.
like, hey, if you don't like it, you can get out.
Right. Well, you're. I think maybe I'm too middle of the road at times too. But my role, and then I'll take it to fatherhood for you. I have a role, and this is maybe it's politics, maybe it's from my mom and my dad, or maybe I realized that my dad worked hard and he provided for me and my family. My mom, after being a homemaker, went and worked at Goodwill and had like helped provide as well. And my mom, when I was little and chubby and had big teeth like this, she believed in me and told me how handsome I was. And my dad, when when I looked the same, taught me how to defend myself. So now when my son was little and sickly, and now my son's big and strong. Like he was type 1 diabetic at 3 years old, 10 shots a day. I had to go to children's with tubes hanging out of them. We'd be there every 3 months on these machines and running these tests on him. And now he's healthy and strong and he did boxing and jujitsu. I feel I have a duty because of how my parents raised me, because of where I live, because of being a man, because of maybe even my skin color. I have a duty to protect the weak. I have a duty to protect the elderly. I have a duty to protect the sickly. I have a duty to protect the people that weren't given the gifts that I was given, weren't given the support, weren't given the love. And as I grow, I this duty is calling whatever it is becoming stronger. So as a dad, man, you want to make me mad, and I'm as peaceful and calm as can be. Mess with my kids. You want to make me mad? Pick on pick on the weak. Pick on the people that are disenfranchised because sure it's easy to pick on the the 1 in 1,000 at your school that is different. No shit, it's easy to pick on those people. And pick on those people, the weak, the elderly, the disenfranchised. And that's where I get angry. And when my kids were little and people cut in front of them in line or push them aside, that's when I get angry, man. And so I just, as a dad, I hope for anybody out there, man, that we could stand up for our children and stand up for those other population sets that I mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Tom, you've been a very gracious guest. I really appreciate you taking this interview. We talked about, the last two couple weeks, and when I reached out, I was like, man, did I miss it last weekend? Did I forget? Because there are things that, like, even though I'm a very scheduled and calendared person, I have to remind myself, and I like checking up.
Mhm.
And I appreciate, I'm on Clubhouse and you can find me 72 the Architect. That's my brand name, but I go by Jason B or Jason Barajas, whatever. And if you want to be a part of some of the rooms that I come into, I'm in charge of a room called Sound Off Tune In, as well as Man to Man Voices and Stories, my Stoic Circus. Those are all parts of my brand. But Dominick has a great platform on Wednesday mornings. It starts about 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 Eastern. When Not the Smartest Guys, and you never know what kind of topic these guys are going to come in. They produce live on Clubhouse and also on YouTube, LinkedIn, and other platforms. So I will leave the description in the notes after this is posted. So, uh, Dominick, any final messages that like to say before we close out?
Yeah, man. One, thank you. I'm so glad. I'm so honored to be a part of it. Thanks for even considering me. But I have one fatherhood thing that I think really would I'd want to finish with. If and so we don't always make the right decisions as dads. So, and we can look back. There's so many things I did wrong. like shit, I probably start crying if you think. But if you make your decisions out of love with your children's best interest in mind, then you are a good dad. So in every situation I've been in, at that moment, I had my children's best interest in mind, and I made the decision out of love. That's all. That's the best I could do. And so in that moment, I had their best interest. I made the decision out of love. That's all I could do. So I did. So I live in a world where I think I did my best. Yeah, maybe I would have given hindsight. Maybe I wouldn't have done that like that. But in that moment, I made that decision out of love with their best interest in mind. And you can sleep softly and soundly on your pillow knowing you did that. And so that's what I think, Jason.
All right. All right. All right. So thank you so much, Dom. We're going to be phasing out here in a second. And actually, I'll be contacting you for wrap up. So thanks, Dom. Appreciate it. We'll see everybody next time on Man to Man Voices and Stories. This has been a great opportunity. And if you want to follow Dominick, I will put the shows on the YouTube notes where you can follow him on his social media. He's a great guy. He's got lots of story, lots of things to be a part of. So we'll see you all next time on Man to Man Voices and Stories.